Hi there, and welcome to Ancestral Recall. I'm your host, Eli Kaplan, and today we're going to be looking at a very special creature type. Magic is a game about badass creatures, fighters, wizards, and planeswalkers throwing down in contests of sorcery and battle prowess to determine who's the best. Magic has some of the most dynamic, threatening creatures in fantasy. Deadly snakes? Check. Towering giants? Check. Swift griffins? Check. Hardy plants? Check. Wait a minute. Hardy plants? In my Magic games? Yes, today we're going to look at a creature type that is all over the real world, plants. These life forms are well known for their long lifespans, their hardy exteriors and sturdy interiors, and not moving much. In real life now, there happen to be plants that move, like the Venus flytrap, a plant that actually extracts nutrients from animals, such as insects and protozoa. And yeah, those things are kind of creepy, and they have acidic sap that can scald you if you touch them. But this is a prey that has no chance against man, or most intelligent life, or at least semi-intelligent life. Flytraps are not going to outrun us, thankfully. But in the fantastic worlds of the multiverse, some plants can walk, hunt, and even sing. Me, 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 me. Yes, an actual singing tree, folks. I mean, really? A singing tree in Magic? Sure. I grew up with the singing bush in Three Amigos. That makes perfect sense. But the singing tree is just too far out there. Mythology and fantasy storytelling have focused on plants, from the Yggdrasil of the Norse Eddas, to the holy elven groves of Tolkien, to the Secret of Mana's Tree of Life, to the Little Shop of Horrors Audrey as the antagonist. There are plant-related spells in Magic, many being ramp spells like Rampant Growth or Abundant Growth or Auras. The ramp spells are more oriented towards showing the power of the land rather than what grows on the land, so we're not going to pay too much attention to them today. Lorwyn's Lignify turns any creature into a tree folk, losing any power it once had. Roots, from Homelands, taps a creature down and keeps it tapped down. And yes, Roots was the best removable spell in Homelands. Planar Chaos's Utopia Vow is a pacifism variant, turning creatures into mana-producing trees, much like the card that inspired it, Invasion's Utopia Tree. And Eladamri's Vineyard from Tempest was a mana resource that kicked up games up a notch in a hurry, though it no longer has opportunities to be a win condition by dealing damage to opponents, thanks to the removal of mana burn. The Vineyard was sweet, and it was part of the very first 60-card deck I piloted at a Grand Prix. The very first plant in Magic appeared in ABU with a very logical premise, Wall of Brambles, though it wasn't labeled at the time. And there is a lot of design space shared between plants and walls or defenders. It took until Visions with Lycanthrope for a plant to go mobile, to have the ability to attack for profit without pump effects. Though the aforementioned Singing Tree from Arabian Nights did have the ability to attack. In fact, many Duelist magazine articles on rules kept asking if the Singing Tree could attack. It had 0 power. Was it even possible? I mean, it's a plant, and plants don't normally attack, right? But no, the Singing Tree could attack if its controller so desired, and you could cause a wall of ice to drop Death of Terror. Vorthos be damned, the rules are the bigger part of the card game first. Anyway, Magic has 45 different creatures printed with the plant subtype, not counting tokens, and we're going to look at the best of them, the 10 coolest plants in Magic. Here are a couple rules for my top 10 list, as always. This list only counts actual creature cards with the subtype plant. Treefolk? Nope. Treefolk are sentient and have culture. Treefolk can talk, in a manner of speaking, a manner that will truly test the patience of all other species. But plants are not sentient. They can be domesticated, however, as the moss dogs will show. Cards that create plant tokens like Avenger of Zendikar don't count because they're not plants themselves. Fungus also doesn't count as plants. They're a separate kingdom of life than animals or plants. Something about eukaryotics? I don't know. Damn it, Jim. I'm a historian, not a biologist. Oh, and Urza's power plant? That doesn't count either. Nice try, wise guy. What else makes a card cool enough to get on the list? Well, if it does something distinct, or if it's powerful, or if it's a fun card to play. As with all my top 10 lists, mana efficiency helps, as does tournament use, but they're not requirements. And to be honest, I don't have that high an opinion of plants as just walls or mana accelerants. That's cliche. So are we clear? Alrighty then. There are actually many surprises in the design of plants that we're going to see in this list. I don't have a very high opinion of plants compared to other creature types, but when I was writing this list, they surprisingly punched well above their weight. So let's leave it all behind and grow familiar with the top 10 plants of Magic the Gathering. I swear, I'll try to keep the puns and vegan jokes to a minimum. In fact, you're past all of them, except for the last minute. Number 10. Vegan Hydropon. This pet project of the Simic is what I like to call hats for days. Some players, including me, like to refer to +1/+1 counters on creatures as hats, I suppose coming from the Monopoly token. And the Hydropon can't even attack or block. Weird. Graft is an incredibly fun mechanic, as are the Abzan abilities of Khans of Tarkir, and the Hydropon allows all sorts of synergistic shenanigans with +1/+1 counters. Getting this into play on Magic Online creates an absolute clickfest, though. Number 9. Mastodon. I must confess, I find this type of compound name to be very appealing. It prompts whole bunches of Power Ranger references in this case. Was it the Green Ranger or the Black Ranger? I forget. Anyway, in Shards of Alara draft, when drafting Naya, getting 5 power creatures was very important, and the ability to give these big guys trample became an ability that just smashed through to win games. I have very fond memories of drafting these guys. Number 8. Vulturous Zombie. Man, that art! That nightmarish visage, that cool ability triggering off of anything going to opponents' yards, not just creatures. Well, what's not to love? This is the pinnacle of the Golgari Swarm's Gardens. While the Vulturous Zombie was too expensive to make an impact on constructed tournament play, multiplayer games know how big of a threat this guy can become. Later on, we get a slightly cleaner version with Alara Reborn's Lord of Extinction. Number 7. Tree of Redemption. Sharing the trait of massive toughness and the ability to fuse itself with its controller, with dramatic outcomes, this card was one of the good guy cards of Innistrad. This card may have been inspired by Yggdrasil, the world tree of Norse myth. That 13 toughness certainly stands out. Number 6. Lycanthrope. This card actually made big waves in Magic design with its drawback. First off, back in the era of Visions in Mirage Block, a 5/5 for 5 mana was almost unheard of. And Lycanthrope was the first creature that took damage in the form of -1/-1 counters, much like Shadowmoor's Wither mechanic, which later got upgraded to Scar's Block's Infect. Now, Legends Lesser Werewolf was the first creature to deal permanent damage to creatures with -X/-X counters, though it was very poorly templated. And Rock Hydra lost +1/+1 counters when it got damaged. But Lycanthrope carved out a new type of design space with its -1/-1 counters. I'm not saying that you should be using this in your cube anytime soon. There are way better fatties out there. But Lycanthrope is definitely important for its mark on the game. Number 5. Phytohydra. This templated ability is very simple. You think that wizards would print it more often. Lorwyn's Vigor, which provides it to all your other creatures, is a better card. But this is the only creature in Magic that absolutely adores getting damage on its own, replacing that damage with +1/+1 counters. ABU's Fungasaur liked a little pain, but could only take so much before giving up the ghost. Phytohydra will take whatever your opponents have got, and then some. Number 4. Singing Tree. This Arabian Nights original was expensive at 0-3 for 4 mana, but it had a distinct ability. Is an attacker causing you problems, like say a Lord of the Pit at 7-7? Tap Singing Tree and its power becomes 0. This only modifies the base stats on the cards. Pump effects stick around. This ability was only shared by one other creature at that point, Sorceress Queen. The rarity still commands a serious price tag at about $50. Number 3. Tinderwall. This Ice Age common is actually something rare in Magic, a card that produces more mana than it costs. We're talking very rarefied air. Things like Dark Ritual, Channel, the Moxen, Soul Ring, Mana Vault, Lotus Petal, and so forth. Tinderwall has an initial cost of G, but can be converted into 2 red mana at will. Due to the picky mana requirements and output, it never really saw much play in Vintage, but the Tinderwall did have its day in the sun as part of an Orcish Lumberjack deck in Ice Age as a fast mana deck. Still, while there are other combo pieces out there that do the job far better, and there are better plants that make mana, Tinderwall definitely holds its own as a historical treasure. Number 2. Genesis Hydra. Yeah, adding Hydra Blood to plants really spiced this creature up. Designed by George Fahn of Plants vs. Zombies, this card hits the battlefield with fairly big stats in the late game and comes along with a free permanent of X casting cost. This guy's great in cubes that aren't so fast-paced, and the Genesis Hydra was a staple during its tenure in Standard. The only reason this isn't in the number 1 spot? Well, if you look at the name of the card, Hydra takes top billing over plants, and that's a shame. Before we get to our number 1 pick, let's take a few moments to look at the honorable mentions that just fell short of making it onto the list. And the number 1 plant of Magic the Gathering is Phytotitan. This M15 bruiser came in at a whopping 7-2, and if it died, and you could expect it to die a lot, it returned to the battlefield tapped on your next upkeep. So the Titan kept clocking in and punching hard every 2 turns, or even more often if it didn't get blocked. This is way better than Mirage's phasing. The mana cost's high, sure, but you get a ton of value for what you pay. It's perennial value, and that's my pick for the best plant in Magic the Gathering. Alright folks, I hope you enjoyed the list. I'll have more on the way in the future, as well as continuing my in-depth look at Legends, and then from there we'll be moving forward a little bit in Magic's chronology. I had a list of list ideas and I was in a weird mood, so I figured I'd start the lists off with this one. Let me know if you think this was enlightening or entertaining. And please, plant yourself in your viewing area and keep enjoying the channel. Told ya. This is Eli Kaplan for Ancestral Recall, signing off. Good games and good luck.